Welcome aboard, folks. My name is John. I'm a licensed Coast Guard captain. There's a couple of things you need to know about my boat before we embark upon this trip. My life preservers are located underneath my console. I have fire extinguishers underneath my helm. I have more life preservers in the back. So therefore, if you get in trouble, I will throw you the yellow life preserver. The yellow life preserver is good because when I throw it to you, I know what to look for when I come back by to pick you up again on the way back in. Now, if you fall in on the way back in, I will still throw you the yellow life preserver. However, I don't have any more trips today. So what we have to do is it's a good safe trip here aboard a pontoon boat. It's very comfortable. I do not speed. I have not got a speeding ticket on the water as of yet. So therefore, we're just sit back and enjoy ourselves and have a wonderful time enjoying the Lake Okeechobee area. Thank you.
All right, John, we are ready to go.
Hello, folks. We're out here on Lake Okeechobee today, and we're here to share with you things that you can do when you visit Okeechobee City. Now, when your guests come down in the wintertime from up north and you come down to visit you and you're sitting around that living room and you ask your guests, what do you want to do? Many times they say, I want to see Lake Okeechobee. I've heard so much about it. And so what do? You load them up in a car, you drive down to the levee, you go across the levee to the pier and say, there's the lake. That's not the lake, folks. What you see is just a very small portion of the lake. What you need to do is do a pontoon boat tour on the lake out of the Okeechobee boat ramp area. And what I do, oh, by the way, my name is John, and I own the John's Guide Service. And what I do is I love to take people out and tell them about our beautiful lake down here, to explain to them the history of the lake, the history of the Kissimmee River that feeds the lake. I talk to them about many different things. So what I'm saying, instead of going to the levee and walking on the pier, call me up, book a trip, and you know what? I'm available almost any time that you desire to go, except for Sunday mornings. And that time I go to church. All right. What do I offer? They say, well, he's got a pontoon boat there. He's got a top on it. And I could take up to 6 people. And what I do is I take you down the Kissimmee River. I talk to you about the history of the Kissimmee River from the area up north all the way down to Lake Okeechobee. And then we enter Lake Okeechobee. That's where we're sitting right now, in the very top of the Lake Okeechobee area. Some information about Lake Okeechobee you may or may not know. Okeechobee is a natural lake. It was formed about 6,000 years ago, and it's about 730 square miles of water, which is roughly equivalent to almost 500,000 acres of water on the surface. Very shallow lake. It's only about 9 or 10 foot deep. So Lake Okeechobee is unique in its own. So when you come down to Lake Okeechobee, and your friends want to see the lake, call up John's Guide Service. You can get the number through the Chamber of Commerce. They are so proficient and efficient. They can tell you more about Lake Okeechobee and the Okeechobee town. They have a wealth of knowledge there. Wonderful people that work there, and they're able and willing to help you in any way they can. One thing about Okeechobee, when you come down and visit your friends here, you may not realize Okeechobee is an essential part of Florida. And you have great access to all parts of Florida. About an hour ride to the East Coast and an hour and a half ride to the West Coast of Florida. And we have a little town up north of here called Disney World. I think that's the name of it. Is that where Mickey lives? And Mickey and Donald? They sure
Yep,
do.
that's where
Well,
you
that's not too far away either. So there's an abundance of things to do that are very close to Lake Okeechobee and Okeechobee City. Check with your chamber. They'll give you a list of things that are available for you to participate in. Down here, when I do my boat ride, I love to take the people out and explain to them the history of Lake Okeechobee, how it was formed, when it was formed. I talk about the size of the lake. I talk about different things that happened in history, such as the 1928 and 26 hurricanes, how they actually changed South Florida from what we know it is today to what it used to be like. I talk about the Seminole Indians. I give some information on the 3 Seminole Indian Wars, and I also give you some tidbits about the Indians that you may or may not know. Just let that be a little surprise to you when you come and visit me. Also, what I do is I talk about the wildlife, the many birds. You know, for my guests from the north, sometimes you've been called snowbirds and stuff like that when you come down here. Well, believe it or not, we actually have snowbirds that come here, and they are actually the wing type bird, and they migrate to South Florida during the winter time, just like you are when you're down here now, to be able to enjoy our sunshine, our beautiful weather, especially when you call back home and say, hey, I'm down here, it's 85 degrees, and they say, you ask them how the weather is up there. Well, it's about 28 degrees. Folks, my freezer at home doesn't get to 28 degrees. So therefore, come on down here to South Florida, Okeechobee, and you go on my boat ride. Now, on my boat ride, what I do, I can take up to 6 people at a time. I do require that you call in advance. And you'll say, John, what type of service do you have? When do you want to go? When do you go? And that's up to you. I'm here to please you and take you out and let you have a good time on Lake Okeechobee. Now, I also offer such things as morning trips. We can get up before the sun rises if you want to and watch the sun come up over the lake. Or I can offer an evening cruise if you want to take a little bit of wine and cheese out here and enjoy the lake and watch the sunset and watch the birds fly off the land and big coveys, big flocks of birds fly out into the beds, into the grass at nighttime where they're going to roost at night. It's a beautiful thing as you see the sunset. I'll go out into an area that's quiet, a lot of grass around us. I'll shut the engine off so it's completely quiet. And you listen and you listen and you hear the gators grunting, the birds talking back and forth. The sun is setting in the east, and many times, at certain times of the month, when the sun sets in the west, what happens, I look over the east and I see a full moon coming up at the same time. It's really beautiful, folks. So if you want to bring some people out here for a nice evening's cruise, we can do that. Also, you can have a customized cruise to your liking within the limits and what the water level permits me to do. I can take you up Taylor Creek. That's an area up here in the very northern tip of Lake Okeechobee. We will go through a set of locks, and I will take you up the river to the Route 70, which is about, I guess 6 or 7 miles up the river, and you can view the homes along the waterway. Also at that time, if you want to bring snacks, sandwiches, drinks, whatever you desire to have, you're more than welcome. I also provide handicap services where we can put a wheelchair on board. I have a gate that's big enough for that. You can sit back here in our comfortable cushioned seats. I have a top to protect you from the rain and the sun. And so it's a very comfortable ride. Also, it's a ride that you can sit back and talk to each other well. I don't go fast. I'm not built to go fast, folks. I'm built to go nice and slow and talk to you in a gentle voice and let you know what's happened, and we can have a conversation back and forth. If you have questions, feel free to ask me. I'm here to help you along to understand what a beautiful lake and area we have down here. Now, we have questions like, gosh, John, what do you do down here? Well, we fish. We do a lot of fishing. Fishing in Lake Okeechobee is tremendous. The bass fishing is phenomenal. It's world renowned. Many people, we have people that will take a trip to Disneyland, and the mom and dad will go up there and they'll get tired. Dad will get tired after a couple of days. He says, I've got to go fish Lake Okeechobee. Come on down. The fish is great. The wintertime, summertime, anytime. We have bass fishing, we have crappie fishing, we have bluegill fishing that's phenomenal during the summertime, and we have a wide range of guides. We have guides set up throughout the area of the lake. Call some of our local tackle stores to get their names and book a guide trip with them so that you can go out and catch possibly that 10-pound bass that you want to hang on your wall when you go back home. Also, what we do, as I mentioned before, I can take you out in the morning, in the evening, and at supper time. So therefore, whenever you call and you have a special request, feel free to ask, and I'll do my best to make sure that what you're looking for can happen here on Lake Okeechobee with my guide service.
All right, welcome to Kissimmee Prairie Preserve State Park. My name's Alex Krieger. I'm the park manager here. This is the second largest state park in Florida and the largest remaining contiguous piece of grassland in the eastern United States, and also Florida's first dark sky park. We're going to be showing you around on the swamp buggy today. We got a lot to see.
All right. And how many acres is out here, Alex?
54,000 acres.
Wow. All right. Let's see what we can cover today.
Yes.
All right. We're excited.
Kissimmee Prairie Preserve State Park is the perfect embodiment of wild Florida. The preserve is part of the Everglades headwaters and protects the largest remaining tract of Florida dry prairie, an ecosystem shaped by cycles of flooding and fire. Many rare, threatened, and endangered species inhabit this place, and the wide open landscape means that bird watchers and photographers have ample opportunities to catch sight of a grasshopper sparrow, crested caracara, or burrowing owl. Your experience, however, begins even before you arrive, with a long journey into the heart of the Florida Peninsula, far from the encumbrances of civilization. You won't need the entrance sign to tell you that you've arrived, when the last of the buildings, power lines, and pavement give way to the breathtaking expanse of infinite grasslands, where the land is dominated by great blue sky. The preserve is internationally recognized for its lack of light pollution, as Florida's first dark sky park, designated by the International Dark Sky Association in 2016. It is difficult to find a location in Florida that is further removed from urban and suburban light pollution, such as bright city lights that make the Kissimmee Prairie one of the last remaining places in Florida where you can marvel at the full beauty of the inky black night sky. Campers can easily spot the Milky Way without using telescopes or binoculars here. All Florida state parks close at sunset. However, we offer a couple ways to gain after-hours access to the preserve to enjoy the dark skies. Astronomy pad sites and a special campground is one of those ways. There are special restrictions for the astronomy sites. After dark, all lights must be a red spectrum, and no campfires are allowed in these sites. These restrictions give stargazers the chance to see stars, planets, and other celestial bodies in incomprehensible numbers and unforgettable brilliance. Jupiter and Saturn are both clearly visible in the night sky. You may even be able to see the International Space Station making its orbit around Earth. Rocket launches from the space centers on the East Coast are also common views. Kissimmee Prairie Preserve State Park offers the best viewing of the night sky in the region and has the credentials to prove it. If you are a Florida State Parks annual pass holder interested in gaining access to the preserve after sunset, you can visit the office during regular business hours and sign up for an after-hours permit, which would grant you access to the preserve's day use areas after hours until 11.
My name is Alex Krieger. I'm the park manager at Kissimmee Prairie Preserve State Park. Today we're out here doing a tour with the Chamber of Commerce folks for Okeechobee County. We're just kind of showing them what we have to offer to visitors to our county.
And what was it that we just came through back there?
So just back there we came through our astronomy campground. Our astronomy campground is a 5-site campground that has extra electrical hookups for large telescopes and special rules about fires and lights at night to preserve everyone's night vision. Kissimmee Prairie Preserve State Park is the first dark sky park in the state of Florida to be designated by the International Dark Sky Association. That has caused a large surge in visitation to Kissimmee Prairie, and it's become a way for people to to become familiar with this place, with the Prairie, with Okeechobee County, and once they come for the dark skies, they typically learn everything else they like about the park after that. But that has been a really key tool in getting people into the park.
Oh, that is great. And who else do we have with us today?
Hi, my name's Christopher Camargo. I'm a park services specialist here. I'm also the burn boss for the property. I'm driving the buggy today. We just came through 7 Mile Slough, which was exciting for the chamber folks. That's the deepest hole we have here in the park.
Yeah, it was deep.
It's definitely very wet. Although typically when we do the buggy tours from November to April, the buggy is more about getting people up high to be able to really enjoy the vast views over the prairie versus actually trying to get through the deep water. That's something that we utilize it more for in the summertime.
Great.
And I wanted to kind of touch on what Alex said with the astronomy campground, which it's a great resource for serious astronomers with big telescopes. And that's not to say that if you can't get into the astronomy campground, that you can't still come out and enjoy the night sky from our regular campsites, the family campground and the equestrian campground, which the equestrian campground, it does accommodate folks who have horses, but it's also not exclusively for horse campers. So that's a great way for people who are just going to come out with binoculars or naked eye viewing to really be able to enjoy the night sky while still being able to have a campfire and that sort of thing.
Wonderful.
Other recreation opportunities at the preserve include bicycling on hard-shell roads suitable for cruisers and up to 100 miles of trails and service roads for off-road or mountain biking. Surrounded by 54,000 acres of prairie, camping at the Kilpatrick Hammock Campground allows you to experience real Florida wilderness with access to modern conveniences. Water and electricity are provided at all 35 campsites along with spacious restrooms including showers and laundry. A water filling and dump station is centrally located so that access in any loop of the campground is convenient. The maximum recreational vehicle length is 65 feet and a 50-amp electrical service and water is available at each site. Kilpatrick Hammock Campground offers equestrian camping too, with one paddock provided for each campsite. Water is provided in the southwesternmost paddocks, and a central community water source is located near the kiosk at the entry to the camp loop. The preserve also offers 3 wilderness primitive campsites located 2.5 miles from the office. These sites can be reached only by hiking or biking and have a picnic table and fire ring. Everything must be packed in, including water, and packed out, and pets are permitted throughout the park in accordance with our pet policy. Trails are located near the campground to allow for exploration of the preserve, and there is no place on earth you can see the same combination of plants and animals that you'll find in the grasslands of Kissimmee Prairie. You may startle a white-tailed deer feeding on the tender grasses, or send an indigo snake slithering off the trail to hide in the wiregrass. Scan the skies and see a crested caracara or bald eagle soaring overhead. Listen carefully and you may even hear the endangered Florida grasshopper sparrows singing in their natural prairie habitat. An abundance of wildflowers dot the countryside too, including yellow bachelor buttons, pipewort, blazing star, meadow beauty, and the delicate alligator lily. Enjoy the prairie by looking into it and not at it. Riding the trails on horseback is one of the best ways to see the preserve. With more than 100 miles of 2-trail roads, horseback riders are apt to see an abundance of wildlife. The trails take you through dry prairie, moist wetlands, and cool, shady hammocks. Bring your own horses and enjoy a day's ride or stay overnight in our equestrian campground. Take a ranger-led prairie buggy tour and see the remote areas of the park. An elevated seat, one will see spectacular scenery and abundant wildlife. The ride lasts approximately 2 to 3 hours and tours are offered from the first weekend in November to the last weekend in March, only on weekends and state-recognized holidays. Reconnect with nature as you spy on birds, alligators, and deer in their natural habitats. Bring your cameras, binoculars, and pick up a preserved species checklist from the park to record your sightings. Being out on the Kissimmee Prairie is like stepping back in time. The buggy tour recalls the journeys many of the settlers may have followed in the 1880s to claim their homesteads on the prairie. Learn about the U.S. Army's use of the site as a bombing range during World War II. Learn the history of the Cracker Cow hunters and imagine the grassy prairie as an open range for cattle drives. It is often said that the best way to experience the wilderness of the prairie is by looking into it and not at it. Ask your tour guide to talk to you about the native grasses and plants, and you may even have the chance to learn to identify them. The ranger can explain why Florida's prairie is called the land of fire and floods. Bring your sense of adventure. All-weather clothing is needed. Sunscreen, a hat, water, and snacks.
The park offers excellent seasonal birding opportunities for the nature tourist. The park provides refuge to 6 federally threatened and endangered species and a further 6 species of special concern. Highlights of a birding trip to Kissimmee Prairie may include the Florida grasshopper sparrow, burrowing owl, crested caracara, wood stork, and the recently sighted white-tailed kite, with many other possibilities. The park has enough varied habitats, including wetlands, dry prairie, and hardwood hammocks, to offer the birdwatching. Besides the endless hours of recreation to be enjoyed at the preserve, is the rich history that can be found at the Visitor Center. Kissimmee Prairie Preserve State Park's main drive is part of the Peavine Railroad. It was built in the early 1900s to accommodate the land boom in Central and South Florida. The rail line no longer exists, but its few years of operation continue to influence this land. The railroad built by the Colonization Land Company ran from Kenansville to its southern terminus at Prairie Ridge. Prairie Ridge is a community that existed partially in what is today Kissimmee Prairie Preserve State Park. Many potential property investors were hauled into the dry prairie ecosystem to a hotel during the winter months, when the temperatures were pleasant and the soil was dry. Some purchased land, and then were astounded by the intense, waterlogged summers and were forced to leave. After many attempts to farm the land at Kissimmee Prairie, farmers realized this land was better suited for cattle grazing. Soon after, the Colonization Land Company went bankrupt and the elevated rail line was dismantled and used for ranching operations and commerce. Some pioneers of the Kissimmee River Valley's expansive grasslands began pursuing the free-roaming cattle that had descended from Spanish explorers' herds. Settlers traveled the Peavine Railroad to trade, gather supplies, and socialize. In the late 1940s, the Lat Maxey Corporation purchased and fenced their property, preventing people from traveling Peavine Railroad. They altered some of the prairie by digging ditches and cultivating pasture grasses and agricultural fields. Most of the property was managed as native range, using fire to rejuvenate the grasses for the cattle. The historic accounts of the prairie are full of fascinating, independent characters who have helped shape this landscape. Their experience and management practices are still components of Kissimmee Prairie Preserve State Park. The dry prairie ecosystem burns more frequently than any other ecosystem in Florida, every 1 to 3 years. During the spring and summer, lightning starts most of the fires, reducing the woody encroachment, fertilizing the prairie, and providing prosperous habitat for the various prairie species. Around 1940, the military acquired a large portion of land to train B-17 aircraft crews in air-to-ground bombings during World War II. The new training ground was called Avon Park Army Airfield. B-17 bombers and other aircraft used bombs ranging from 15-pound practice bombs to 2,000-pound demolition bombs containing 2-ton high explosives. Accidental fires caused by exploding bombs probably contributed to keeping the prairie in excellent condition, like the fires that start naturally. After World War II, the military put part of the land up for sale, Initially, the land was purchased by various cattlemen. In 1997, the state of Florida acquired 48,000 acres to establish Kissimmee Prairie Preserve State Park. Although there were several old targets within the preserve, over time, the Prairie has reclaimed them. Adjacent to the west boundary of the preserve, across the Kissimmee River, the Avon Park Air Force Range is active today. And you flood it out, and that's what keeps trees from growing in it. So even though this is a very short ecosystem, it's also a very, very old growth ecosystem. Think of it as an upside down rainforest. So if everything gets burned off every year, every other year, and it gets flooded out every year, the top of it never has a chance to grow very tall, which is fine. But if you looked at this from underneath the earth, the root systems of some of these plants have just been in place for thousands of years. And so you have this complex, ecosystem happening underground that is, complex and, working together as, any old growth ecosystem, like any kind of old growth forest, rainforest, for example.
Okay.
And talking about, coming out here in the summertime, 6, 7, 8 o'clock, we close at sunset, but those last couple of hours before sunset are great for sky viewing, for clouds, for passing storms that aren't necessarily hitting exactly where you are, but are, putting on quite a light show with lightning out here. You watch them build coming from the ocean side or coming from Sebring and that sort of thing, and that's again like something that you can enjoy just while you're driving down our park drive. It to me, the sky, but not just like the night sky, the sky here in general is one of the coolest things that we have in the park. Being able to really enjoy it. I mean, like she mentioned, the clouds is just, awesome.
Amazing.
Some of the coolest stuff we get to do here, because there's, having worked in 4 other state parks before this one, it's like I'm finally getting to learn clouds now that I've been here. It's because normally we're working in pine trees and that sort of thing, bigger hammocks, and it's just stuff that you can't really enjoy. But out here you absolutely can. It's just like a totally different sort of place to be. I love coming up here. It's a short walk. There's just a little parking area down here that we'll go by, and it's a short walk just to this spot. And this is a great spot, I think, for you really get to see like all aspects of the prairie. Because again, like what we have right over here, up and to the right, is that pristine, best prairie in the world prairie.
Mm-hmm.
As it kind of comes right into the 7 Mile Slough, which is, of course, in the interactions of those two ecosystems, just creates great views. Of course, the nice breeze that we've got.
Yeah, great habitat.
Florida's hydrology has been altered from its original design involving an association between fire and water. The Kissimmee River Valley is no different. The dry prairie ecosystem once stretched from coast to coast and from Kissimmee to Lake Okeechobee. A vast prairie network evolved from ancient seas and more recently by an annual sheet flow of water and frequent fires. With less than 10% of the ecosystem remaining, it is especially important to restore the prairie to pre-European influence. For more than 70 miles of canals and ditches within the Kissimmee Prairie Preserve State Park have been returned to sloughs and swales. With the hydrology restored, fire and water can function as strong sculptors. Water can perform its role by drowning plants that are unable to withstand months-long inundation. Fire is no longer inhibited by deep, wide canals and can impact the woody encroachment that has arisen as a result of human activities. Other restoration projects planned is the semi-improved pasture land that will be restored back to prairie with native grasses and shrubs. Miles of old plow lines from wildfires need to be reconditioned so that they do not continue to restrict fire. And land restoration is a long-term process that requires teamwork, dedication, expertise, and patience. The Florida Park Service has started the process of healing the land for the well-being of the various plants and animals that depend on the dry prairie ecosystem. The Friends of the Kissimmee Prairie Preserve was founded in 2011 to work for the preservation, protection, interpretation, and promotion of and in the best interest of the Kissimmee Prairie Preserve. The Friends organization is a Florida not-for-profit 501c3 corporation and relies on membership fees and private donations to pursue activities on behalf of the preserve. Kissimmee Prairie Preserve State Park protects the largest remaining tract of the unique Florida dry prairie ecosystem, one of the biologically richest grasslands in the world. Its 54,000 acres contain a mosaic of dry prairie, wet prairie, marshes, sloughs, cabbage palm and oak hammocks, floodplains, and no less than 14 distinct natural communities, which support a vast and diverse array of flora and fauna. This includes a number of endangered and threatened species. It is one of the last places to find the Florida grasshopper sparrow, perhaps the most endangered bird in the continental United States. This is the land made famous by author Patrick Smith of A Land Remembered.
Thanks for coming out today. It was a pleasure to show the Okeechobee Chamber of Commerce around the park. We hope to see you guys come out and visit sometime soon. If you have any questions, give us a call at 863-462-5360. If you want to make a reservation for the campground, reserveamerica.com.
Thank you guys so much. We had a fantastic day, and you did. You showed us so many things out there that I wasn't even aware of. So thanks again. We enjoyed it.
Thanks for coming.
Well, good morning, gentlemen. Well, today we have with us John Campbell and Alex Krieger, and we are excited for them to share a little bit of more information about our after hours with you. So I'm going to ask them a couple of questions. So Alex, how about if I start with you, okay?
Sure.
All right. So outdoor tourism refers to recreation engaged in out of doors, most commonly in a natural setting. The activities themselves, such as fishing, hunting, backpacking, horseback riding, etc., are characteristically dependent upon the environment that is practiced in. They're pursued variously for enjoyment, exercise, challenge, camaraderie, spirit renewal, and an opportunity to partake in nature itself. Can you give us some examples of how visitors can accomplish this with the services that you already have available out there?
All right. Well, Kissimmee Prairie is an excellent destination for RV and tent camping, hiking, biking, birding, horseback riding, all kinds of recreational activities. Think things that are consistent with preservation and conservation. So non-extractive activities, low impact activities is what we try to offer at Kissimmee Prairie. In a more normal year, we've got swamp buggy tours and other ranger programs. The most popular thing that we've got going on right now is astronomy. We were designated as a dark sky park in 2016, and since then we've actually had a really huge explosion in popularity, even in the off season.
Very good. All right. All right, John. So can you tell me what type of opportunities, or give me some examples of how visitors can accomplish this with you?
Well, what I provide is a unique situation, whereas I can take people out on Lake Okeechobee. Many people have never been on the lake, so therefore I can explain to them the characteristics of the lake. I can talk about the originality of the lake. Also, I can show them up close and personal the different aspects of the lake, such as the birds we have, the population of the alligators, and the many beautiful things we have in evening time and morning time. The sunsets are gorgeous. Many times on the lake we can sit there and watch a sunset take place. As the sun is setting, a flock of birds will fly from the land over to the grass to roost overnight. Also, at the same time, you can turn around, look back to the east, and see the moon rising. I don't have much exercise on my boat because we're riding along, taking our time, an enjoyable cruise where it's not too fast, but we can all carry on a conversation together. And we have a companionship there that we can talk to each other and really ask questions and get answers.
That's great, John. Thank you. All right, gentlemen, our second question is, what was the aha moment for you that made you go on a mission to share the natural beauty found in Okeechobee with our residents and with our visitors alike? So, Alex, you want to go ahead first again?
Yeah, I guess it probably happened sometime in 2011. January 15th, 2011 was my first day working at Kissimmee Prairie as an AmeriCorps member. This is a national service organization. In the Florida State Parks AmeriCorps program, I spent 2 terms at Kissimmee Prairie, and it was the first place I lived outside of my hometown, Lexington, Kentucky. And in that time, I kind of fell in love with the prairie. I got to, do everything there is to do out there. Watch the storms, stargaze, see little baby deer that had just been born. And I kind of fell in love with the resource that they had there. So I decided sometime during that time that I wanted to make a career in parks. And after working at some other parks, I had an opportunity to come back to Kissimmee Prairie in 2018 as the park manager. And it's I've already achieved my dream,
That's been quite an experience then.
Yeah.
That is great. That is great. Well, I know when we visited out there, we thoroughly enjoyed everything. So, John, can you tell us what was your aha moment?
Paula, my aha moment is a longer period of time than just a bam, yes, there it is. What I have done is I'm from Florida. I was born and raised in West Palm Beach. I have fished and participated in the activities of the lake for over 50 years, but let's not go into detail. When I moved to Okeechobee in the early 2000s, I took my pontoon boat out and enjoyed the scenery as much as I did the fishing. And I said, this is such a beautiful lake, it needs to be shared by other people. So therefore, my wife suggested, why don't you have a boat tour? Aha, good thought, honey. So what I did is I created this John's Guide service with a boat tour to take the people out, to show them the lake, talk to them about the history of the lake that many people do not have an idea about. Many people think the lake is a man-made lake, but it's not. I talk about the size of the lake. I talk about the Seminole Indian Wars, the 3 different wars. I talk about the hurricanes, how they affected South Florida as we know it now to what it is in the past, or what it was in the past. So therefore, I give you quite a bit of information so that when you leave my trip, you'll be much more informed than what you were before.
That's great, John. And I know we certainly were. We learned an awful lot. No matter how long you've lived here, you can always learn something different by talking to other individuals. So I think that was great.
That is correct.
All right. So, Alex, we'll go with this question with you again first. Do you feel that there is a major need to protect these environments, or are we doing a fairly good enough job that they'll be around for many years so that many can continue to enjoy them?
Well, at nearly 54,000 acres, Kissimmee Prairie is the largest remaining grassland east of the Mississippi River in the United States. A lot of people don't know that. That seems like a lot of land, but less than 5% of that total habitat remains in Florida. The people that come to visit Kissimmee Prairie, and there are more and more people that visit there every year, adore that place. It's a lot of people's favorite state park. And so for that reason, I think that the people of Florida are going to continue to choose to protect that beautiful heritage that they have, that natural heritage.
Great. And that's what we would hope, that the things that we have that are important to us today, that we can continue and build on them, definitely for the future. All right, and John?
Paulette, absolutely the environment is a critical concern by all people involved in the business that we are in, attracting our guests from up north to come down to visit us. What we have experienced in the lake is a lot of information that has changed the lake to different aspects, but we are always working, like such as an example would be the straightening of the Kissimmee River and pushing it back to its original condition, the original riverbank, which has improved the quality of the lake tremendously. And we are reaping the benefits of that now. The lake is clearing up, and it's a beautiful place out there. We see a lot of things out there that people have never seen before when I take them out there. The flowers and the cattails and the birds, once again, to be redundant, and all the beautiful sights that you can see on the lake. But the environment is critical, because if we don't take care of our lake, we will not be able to show it to the future generations.
Absolutely. And that is with any piece of property that we have that we feel should be protected. We need to make sure that we're protecting it, definitely, as a community. All right, and our last question, Alex, what is your future goal for your business?
Well, I think it's important to distinguish that that Florida state parks are not really businesses. They're kind of quasi-business like government services. And as such, it's our mission to provide resource-based recreation to the people of Florida and the visitors to Florida, while also preserving and protecting and interpreting that resource to the people. One of my goals for the near future is to establish a dark sky area. Right now, the only way to get in and enjoy the astronomy in a dark sky park is to have overnight camping accommodations. And because we need to protect the resource there, we can't have unlimited camping, I'm afraid. And so, so that people can get in and enjoy the dark sky park without getting reservations 11 months out, we need to figure out a way to let people in without necessarily, establishing a new campground. So that's one thing that we're working on right now. Insofar as that there are business opportunities associated with outdoor recreation and the people that we attract to Okeechobee County, those are for the businesses of Okeechobee County to reap.
Very good, very good. And I know I can't wait to try to get out there at that night sky if I could just stay awake that long.
Oh, yeah.
I hear it's beautiful. All right, and John?
The future goal of my business is to let the people who have never been to Okeechobee, to the heartland of Florida, come and see what we have to offer. Not only do we have the lake to offer, but the Kissimmee Prairie, so many different things. My particular business is for those people who are visiting the mid part of the state up around. There's a lot of theme parks in the central part of the state of Florida, but sometimes you may want to travel a little bit further south to see the beauty of Florida. I want you to be able to come up here and take a boat ride with me so that I can explain to you some of the natural history of Florida and show you the beauty that we have in Florida so that you can take it back home and share with your friends and loved ones and have something to do when you come down here to visit your kin. Thank you.
That is great. Well, gentlemen, certainly we appreciate everything that you've done for us. Thank you for the answering of these questions, but thank you both so very much for sharing with Mariah and I, and now sharing with our whole community about your businesses or about the Prairie itself and about the lake. So we're excited to be able to share this with everyone. So thank you so very much for taking the time and to be with us. Thank you.
Paulette.
Thank you, Paulette.